Okay. Hi everyone. So sorry the videos are taking a while to get to you. I had originally recorded a video, and then in the very beginning I said, this will only take a couple of minutes because I don't want to take up too much of your time, and then proceeded to make an hour and a half video. Why would you do that? So I am going to try again and break it up into smaller videos. This video specifically is talking about the interface and directory of SolidWorks. So I'm just going to be given a very brief recap of what that looked like and how to open a sketch, just in case anyone was lost in that point. My next videos are going to be about dimensioning a sketch, and then I'm thinking of doing third video that talks about more specific things like circular sketch pattern and linear pattern, offset entities, and demonstrating my thought process behind dimensioning and sketching something. Not for you guys to adopt as your own, but rather for you guys to have an example of what that may look like or the different variations that there could be. Okay, so let me move this out the way like this. Okay. So when you first open SolidWorks, right, you open it up, your computer starts wanting to fly away because the fans probably has started operating. You'll see this initial page. Now, as I mentioned before, SolidWorks offers three little avenues by which you can create, right? There's the part, assembly, and then there's drawing. Remember, part is the very first thing you create, and then you get those multiple parts of your creation, and then you put them into an assembly to make a system. And then from that assembly, whether it's a part or an assembly, you can create a drawing, which is just an engineering drawing. When you distribute this drawing to manufacturers or a team, it's just a way of communication as to what dimensions are, material is, all that good stuff. In these workshops, you'll expect to learn about parts and assemblies, not drawings, because drawings are on the simpler side, and it's not the focus to CAD that I wanted to bring to you guys. That's more like a manufacturing standpoint, I would personally say. But because basic training is about getting you guys ready for your transition into UCLA or any other institution, I want to make sure that you guys get the very basics down first. So we're going to go ahead and open a part by clicking on it. SolidWorks is going to open that up for us as a new doc or a new file. Just waiting for that to load. And remember that there's also different ways for you to open a new file, right? I'll go into that right now once it finishes rendering. So at this very top part here, right where it says SolidWorks in the top left corner, right next to it says File. If you click on File, it'll give you all these options: the new, open, open recent, open drawing. When you click on New, it will give you the option to create a new document, or rather a new part, specifically a part. If you want to make an assembly from a part, then you click this option. A drawing from a part, you click this option, right? It's very straightforward. There's the save option, the save as, and the save all, which I'm sure you guys all know how to use. Then there is the pack and go. Pack and go in SolidWorks, I forgot to mention this in the workshops because it honestly didn't come to mind. But the pack and go in SolidWorks just means when you make a collection of your parts in SolidWorks and you email them. It just basically encompasses everything into what I believe is a zip file, sends it to someone, and then they just unzip the file or the folder. Properties is something I'll touch on as I talk about the design tree, which I'll give you guys a rundown on. But right next to that, you have your edit part. I'll talk about rebuild in parts, not right now, because right now my focus is going to be on your sketching. There's your views, your inserts, your tools. I don't really use inserts unless I'm talking specifically about sheet metal, like in terms of manufacturing. But again, not the scope of this workshop. So I first want to talk about talking you guys through the interface of SolidWorks and what you are seeing here. So first is first, establishing your working area. By your working area, I mean what SolidWorks is capable of doing and what it's capable of telling you. Remember that similar to Onshape, you have to set up your units. Your units in SolidWorks are going to be located, if you follow my mouse, to the bottom right corner of your screen. At this bottom part, you will see something that says IPS. If you click on it, it shows you the options to IPS, MMGS, CGS, and MKS. These are just different unit systems that you can apply to SolidWorks. It just depends on whatever practice you're doing. So I'm going to stay in IPS. I'm going to leave that alone. It says editing part because currently you're working on a part. Let's see if I can move this thing from Zoom. Yeah. Once you create a sketch, at this bottom part here, likewise to where it says IPS and editing part, it will show you whether or not your sketch is defined or underdefined. But that'll come up once I start sketching. For now, let's jump up to the top part of the screen again, where it says Sketch Smart Dimension, right under where it says SolidWorks. Smart Dimension, as I mentioned before, is the main thing that I want you guys to focus on for this workshop, as it is what will help you define your sketch and get you to that black line instead of the blue line. Right next to Smart Dimension, you'll see your line feature, your box feature, your slots, all of which I'll be walking through when I demonstrate to you guys making a sketch, whether that's in the second video or the third video. Then you have your other options like trim entities, convert entities, offset entities, offset on surface, which honestly I myself don't really use because it's a 3D sketch. Then there's a mirror, linear, right? All of which I will also be discussing when I am sketching the house or sketching my example of a stamp. Now I want to talk to you guys about the design tree. Your design tree is going to be at the left side of your screen. I'm going to expand it so you guys know exactly what it is I'm talking about. What it is that I am expanding on the screen is called your design tree. Right here in this window is your feature manager, and it'll show you the folder and your sensors if you choose to apply those. That's not our main focus, so we're not going to apply that. Material here, if I right click it, will give me the option to change the material or apply a material depending on what it is that I'm creating. So say, for example, I want to laser cut something, and in the makerspace, you will become aware of, as Aniket walks you through the makerspace, that you will be either using sheet metal or acrylic or wood. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, when you are designing in terms of these materials, it is good to apply the material either when you start sketching or when you're done sketching, you want to apply it to a 3D feature. Why? Because let's say you want to make an assembly out of it. It's good to have that material set in place because then you can get something like your mass, your center of gravity, your motion study going. These are all things that will be relevant in terms of material. But I won't be touching on this too much or how to change it because that is more on the parts end of the workshop and that isn't until Monday. So we're gonna leave that alone. Just wanted you guys to know what this is and how to access it. To access it, you hover over it, right? It says not specified because we didn't choose anything. We are going to right click it and it will give you the option to choose it. Keep in mind that you cannot change or rather access this part of the design tree if you are within a sketch. Currently, we're not in a sketch, so that's why it allows us to change it. Okay, now I want to spend some time talking about your planes. You may remember that I talked about the importance of your planes in the workshops, and I'm just going to reiterify what that is. Your sketch is just like the playground on where you create your sketch. There's the front plane, the top plane, and the right plane, which if I hover over these, you'll see be highlighted in an imaginary orange box. In SolidWorks, this is just the way it orients itself, right? It doesn't mean that it has if I specify this to you, it doesn't mean it has a specified unit by which it dimensions it, right? It doesn't mean that this box is going to be like 5 by 10 inches. In SolidWorks, this is just a representation of what that plane looks like relative to a different plane or relative to the origin. And it doesn't restrict you to these blue lines. You can sketch outside of those lines. I just wanted to make that clear in case anyone was confused. So now, how do I make this visible in case you want to see these before you create a sketch? It is the same for front plane, top plane, and the right plane. I'm going to right click and it's going to give me this option. It's going to give me sketch. It's going to give me the view. It's going to give me the magnifying glass, whether it is that I want to zoom into the selection or not. And it's going to give me normal to. Normal to just means I'm going to be facing right in front of the plane. That is all it means, right? You know what zoom selection is. When I click the eye, it will highlight this into a very, very light blue inside this rectangle. And I can do the same for all these other planes because it gives me the same options, right? And now you see that it has these dotted lines. Those dotted lines just show the intersection between the front plane, top plane, and the right plane, right? That's how you know where they are in relation to each other. Now, let's say I didn't want to go through and click each individual eye. I can go up here, right under where it says SolidWorks CAM, TBM, and analysis preparation. It gives me very similar options, right? The zoom to fit, the zoom to area. This section area thing, I will not talk about it just yet because we don't have a 3D part by which I can show you. remember that your sketch is only a 2D. Your dynamic annotation views, you probably won't use often, and I won't go into that because it's not my area of expertise. It's more of a more advanced thing, I would say, but if you want to play around with that, we can. Okay, this is what I want to talk about, your view orientation. If I click on this, it will give me this box. You may recognize this box from Aniket's Onshape section of the workshop. Basically, what this box does is the very same thing as Onshape. It just orients me according to whatever surface I want to click. So say, for example, I want to be in the back surface. If I click on it, it will orient me to the back of it. Right now, you don't see that example clearly because I do not have a sketch or a 3D part. However, you can see that it moves according to this bottom part right here. Not exactly at the bottom left part of my corner, but rather like a little bit into the center of the screen where it has the X and the Y axis. You'll notice that as I rotate this cube, that coordinate, the coordinate axis is also changed as well. So that's how you know you've changed orientation. If in case you were confused, in case your part has some sort of symmetry, you can check by checking these axes right here. There is also this part here. I can't show you because we don't have a 3D part, so I can show you guys more concrete example once we create a part. But for now, I just wanted you guys to know that this is an option. If you lose your sketch, say you zoom in, say you zoom out way too much, you can just click on that and it should relocate your sketch for you. And then you just click on whatever surface you want to view it on, whatever it is that you prefer, that you want to edit, and it should take you to that specific place. That's just in case you lose it. So now the hide and show items I showed at the very last part of the workshop, and I want to reiterate what it does. It just gives you a bunch of selections of what it is that you can do on SolidWorks. SolidWorks is very versatile. I have explained it to some of you, but not all of you, so I'll take the opportunity to do that now. Onshape is very quick and easy to use at times because it cuts off a lot of like the little steps that you have to do in between in SolidWorks, right? In comparison to those two, Onshape is very automated, I would say, which is what makes it very quick and easy to use. However, it can also be confusing to use because it skips over those steps. It's like following a math problem, and then the professor assumes that you already know what each step is. On SolidWorks, it's different because you go through each step individually or as much as possible, and SolidWorks is kind of guesses, if that makes any sense. And by that, I mean, it will highlight something orange, or it'll give you a specific relation that maybe you should use. You don't always have to take it, of course, but that's just the way SolidWorks works. It doesn't have that already for you. It provides you the option to do so. Okay, you wanted to see your planes. You click on here, it shows you your planes. If you wanted to see, let's say, your relations, you click here. If you want to see your dimensions, you click here. You can just go around and play around with these things. The most you would probably use is going to be the sketch relations view and then the view sketch dimensions along with your planes. Say you want to create a different plane, which I will not touch on because of the length of this video that I want to keep in. You could click on this, but I can walk you guys later on how to create that plane. Sometimes you will need it when you're making more complicated designs, so when you're preparing for your certification exam for SolidWorks, if you choose to take that, but we will not be going that right now. You can also view your axes if you choose to create one and your points. So if you lose any of that and you want to see it again, you can just click on this eye and it should give you that option to do so. Okay, now let's not view this. The last thing I want to touch on in your design the last thing I want to touch on in your design tree is going to be your origin. So your origin is the only thing in SolidWorks that makes sense to the program. Nothing else in SolidWorks is defined except your origin. Everything else you have to manually put in a dimension or relation or whatnot in order to have it be fully defined. That is the reason why I tell you when you initially create a sketch, you want it to first dimension it in accordance to the origin, either how far it is, how far up to the left, how far up to the right. Because SolidWorks will register that and be like, okay, I know this dimension, and you want it to be 2 inches from the specific point that I know for a fact exists, so therefore it will become fully defined. So remember, you will always keep in mind your origin. Okay, now for creating your sketch. If you want to create a sketch, you're going to go up here, and you're going to click on this part that says sketch. If you, for some reason, click on, like, let's say sheet metal or features, it does not mean you no longer have access to create a sketch. All that means is you have to click on the tab right here, this top part of the screen, and it will take you to all your options that you have for a sketch. You'll notice that it has the option for a 3D sketch. Don't worry about that right now. For now, you're going to focus on sketch. So we're going to go ahead and click on the sketch option. And remember, you always want to choose a plane that makes sense to you, a plane that you have some design intent for. So say, for example, I want to sketch the house. Let's say I want to view it standing up. Then I'm gonna probably choose front plane or the right plane. Let's say I wanted to view it like if it's on top of a table or a counter, then in that case, I'm going to choose top plane. You should be making those type of associations in your planes with how you would view the part, because that helps you kind of get into the mentality of, okay, I'm going to need to create this part or this relation, or I want to create this function. You should keep your planes in mind is what I'm simply trying to say. So let's click the front plane. Okay, I want to walk you guys through this very top part. On the top here, where you had initially pressed for sketch, you will see the fact that it now says exit sketch. In SolidWorks, once you create something, right, let's just create a line here. If I exit sketch, it will still be there because I did not delete it. This does not mean that my file is saved. Rather, it means that I have just exited the sketch and I need to save it. It means that I just cannot make any alterations to it unless I choose edit sketch. If I want to re-access my sketch after I exited my sketch, I can either click here. So I'm going to right click in my design tree where it says sketch 1, and I'm going to click at the top part where it says edit sketch. This part is an edit sketch plane. That just means I can change whatever plane I'm in. I can demonstrate to you guys that part in that specific section of the design tree once we go into parts, because that's when it's mostly used. Suppress just means it's not deleted from the system, but the system just doesn't register it or doesn't demonstrate it to you. Actually doesn't tell me what this is. I'll review that, but let's edit the sketch. If I press the X, it will delete my sketch. That's what this warning is. It will always give you a warning. It won't just like exit out. So unless you put don't show again, but that's why you don't press that. So if you select the X, it will not save your sketch. That's something very important about SolidWorks. SolidWorks doesn't have the window that shows sketch 1 and then the little options that you get in Onshape. Rather, it just has it in this kind of top right corner here of your screen, and you just have to keep assessment of that. But I don't want to delete the sketch, so I'm just going to press exit. From there, you are going to see that it has the shaded sketch contours. I usually keep this on because I want to see whether or not my sketch is fully closed or whether or not my sketch is open or intersecting with each other. Sometimes I don't want my sketch to be intersecting with each other. Like if I'm making a silhouette, I don't want it to be, one on top of the other. So that's why I keep it on. It's a good visual aid for me, especially because 3D CAD can be a little confusing at times. So I'm going to walk over through whatever SolidWorks offers you in terms of sketch features that I mentioned I was going to talk about in the beginning of this video. And then we'll jump on to the next video. So SolidWorks, like I said, is very similar to Onshape, and it doesn't offer you a lot of difference when it comes to what Onshape can offer you. So we've discussed what the line and the rectangle is and what the circle is. I realized that we didn't spend a lot of time in your slot or in your polygon or your sketch rounding corners or your ellipse. Honestly, you won't really use the ellipse, or your arcs or your scribble or your word art. Even though I did see that some of you were using this part, which was really cool. I'm glad you guys took the lounge on that. Or your points. The point you won't always use, if I'm being honest, because SolidWorks automatically does a point when you create a line or a tangent arc, but we'll get into that later. I'll demonstrate what these look like in the next video, but I just want you guys to keep that in mind as you walk through the interface of SolidWorks when you first create a part. Then there's these parts. These parts are a little more, I would say, like cutting steps. They're really easy to use. Offset entities is used within a sketch. Convert entities is used when you exit a sketch and creating a new one, or when you have a part and you want to copy its silhouette, whether that's its edges or whatever entities it has. Trim entities is the one that I demonstrated to you just now without talking about it. You have your power trim, you have your trim to closest. These two are the ones that I personally use the most. You can change the options between keep trim entities or ignoring the trim of construction. Honestly, I don't have a use for those unless I want to keep track of what it is that I'm cutting, which isn't always the case, so I just leave those alone. You can change those on a case-by-case basis, but the fastest one to use is the power trim because you just hold down on the left side of your mouse, and the trim to close is just it deletes segments at a time. And then here, I wanted to show you guys your display and delete relations, which is right next to repair sketch and right next to mirror entities and linear sketch pattern. If you press down on it, it will give you the option to see your relations or include one, which is really good in the case that you don't know exactly what could be overdefined in a sketch or underdefined in a sketch. So this is just a good way to kind of keep it all in one area. Once you click on it, it will go to your design tree and it'll show you all of your relations in this specific box, whether or not it's suppressed, your entities and all that jazz. Um, if you needed a visual aid in seeing what each relation is named and how many you have of them, you can go ahead and do that by clicking your display and delete relations. Someone asked me if there is a quick way for you to dimension everything on SolidWorks. And I want to say, I think I've seen it before. However, I want to advise you against using it if that feature does exist. The reason being is because it's good for you to, oh, it's the repair sketch feature. So say for example, it's over defined and you need to repair something, you can click on this. Sometimes SolidWorks will give you the option on design tree, which I cannot demonstrate because we don't have a sketch right now. But like I was saying, I would advise you guys to not use a quick fix in SolidWorks. Like say for example, something is moving in your part of assembly and it asks you to fix something, like keeping it static in that one specific area. I advise against it. You want to be the one who's completely in charge of changing everything in your sketch and your part. And it's a good thing that you keep track of those things. Um, in terms of sketch relations, dimensioning, and all that good stuff, again, I advise against using something quick. Maybe if you're in a time crunch and you really need to do it, then by all means, you're your own person. However, I think it's just good practice for you to go part by part and understanding what it is that you're designing and what it is that you're creating, because you yourself will be going in and adding those dimensions. So that's just my personal advice. I'm sure it's here somewhere. I just don't see it now personally. I can point it out to you, whoever it is that asked that question, because I know I saw it on the forums, I think. Um, if I find it, but I just advise against it. I know that in your drawings, actually, when you create a drawing, it gives you the option to dimension everything super quickly, which in that case, yeah, go for it. I mean, you're not changing anything once it's in a drawing, right? Unless you go in and open the file itself. So that was the first video. And just to recap, I went over starting a new file, your interface and your directory in SolidWorks, your units and your basic setup, right? When you first open SolidWorks, what it is that you should be looking for, your design tree and your planes, your origin, your sketch features that are available to you. That was all reviewed in this video. I went at a slower pace. Hopefully that was helpful. And I'll see you guys in the next video when I model how to dimension something according to units and dimension something according to its relations.